What do you do when your world is shattered in front of everyone you know? When the man you married humiliates you at your own anniversary party, exposing every hidden truth? For Emily, it all came crashing down in one painful moment, but that moment also set her free. Stay tuned to see how Emily turned betrayal into empowerment and how she used the lens of her camera to find her true self and make sure the world saw the truth too. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories of resilience and strength. I stood in the corner of my sister-in-law's extravagant living room, clutching my glass of wine tightly, as if it could protect me. The room hummed with laughter and chatter, family members celebrating our 10th wedding anniversary, and I could feel every moment pulling me further away from the warmth I once knew. I had spent hours preparing for this night, wearing the blue dress that John had always said he loved, but now it felt like an armor rather than a choice. My husband, John, moved through the room like a man on a mission, greeting family and friends with his usual polished smile and effortless charm. But as I watched him interact with his younger cousins, my eyes caught sight of something that made my stomach churn. His gaze lingering on Brittany, his secretary, who had somehow been invited to our family gathering. The last few months had been a slow, quiet unraveling. John had started staying late at work, missing dinners, and treating our home like a hotel, only there when it suited him. When he was around, his words cut through the air, sharper than they had ever been, each one leaving its mark. But tonight was supposed to be different. It was our anniversary, and I had hoped foolishly that we might finally find a way back to each other. I watched as Brittany laughed at something John whispered in her ear, his hand briefly resting on her lower back, unnoticed by everyone but me. The sight twisted something deep within me, and I took another sip of wine, trying to steady myself. "Everyone gather around!" John's voice rang out across the room. He stood near the fireplace, holding his glass high, that same confident smile I had once fallen in love with stretched across his face. "I'd like to make a toast to my lovely wife." His eyes met mine, but instead of the affection I had once seen there, all I could see now was a cold, almost contemptuous glint. I should have walked away right then, before he even opened his mouth, but I stayed. 10 years, John started, swirling his glass. 10 long years with Emily. There was something in the way he emphasized long that made several guests shift uncomfortably. I felt my sister-in-law Jessica's concerned gaze from across the room, but I couldn't look away from John. The weight of my diamond ring felt like a chain now, a reminder of everything that was slipping away. "You know," John continued, his smile growing sharper, "when I married Emily, she was quite the catch. Young, beautiful, full of life." My heart began to race, the words hanging in the air. "But time hasn't been kind to everyone, has it, honey?" Nervous laughter rippled through the room. I noticed Brittany, her smirk barely concealed behind her perfectly manicured hand. My cheeks burned, and I realized too late what was coming. "I mean, look at her now," John gestured toward me dramatically. "Standing there in that dress she bought years ago, pretending she can still pull it off." More uncomfortable laughter. "Honey, even department stores have a clearance section for outdated items." The wine glass in my hand shook as I fought to hold it together. I wanted to run, to scream, to throw something at his smug face, but instead, I stood there, frozen, as he publicly humiliated me. "But hey," John raised his glass higher, "at least she's consistent. Same old boring Emily with her little hobbies and simple dreams. While some of us," his eyes drifted to Brittany, "know how to stay young and exciting." The room fell into a painful silence. Even the guests who had laughed earlier now looked away, embarrassed. My brother-in-law Michael took a step forward, but John wasn't finished yet. "To my wife," he declared, his voice dripping with mockery, "who probably thought this was going to be a lovely anniversary celebration. Surprise, sweetheart. Consider this my gift to you. The truth. Nobody wants yesterday's news, especially not me." The sound of my wine glass shattering on the hardwood floor broke the silence. Red wine spread across the expensive flooring like blood, staining the hem of my blue dress, but I barely noticed. Everything had become crystal clear in that horrible moment. Without a word, I turned and walked toward the door. Behind me, I heard John's laugh, followed by Brittany's high-pitched giggle. "See?" he called out. "She can't even take a joke anymore." But I wasn't laughing, and I wasn't crying either. Something else was building inside me, something that would soon make John regret every word he'd just spoken. I drove through the dark streets with shaking hands, barely seeing the road through my blurred vision. I didn't even realize I was heading to my sister Ashley's house until I found myself parked in her driveway. The porch light flicked on before I could reach the door. "Emily!" Ashley appeared in her pajamas, her face changing from confusion to concern as she saw my state. "Oh my God, what happened?" I tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. The humiliation of the past hour crashed over me like a wave, and my legs gave out. Ashley caught me before I could fall, pulling me into her warm embrace. I choked out. "John, at the party." The sobs I'd been holding back finally broke free. Ashley guided me inside to her cozy kitchen, the one place that had always felt safe since we were kids. She wrapped her favorite blanket around my shoulders and put the kettle on, our family's solution to every crisis. "I should have told you sooner," Ashley said quietly, placing a steaming mug of tea in front of me. "I've been seeing things, hearing things." I looked up at her, my hands clutching the warm mug. "What things?" Ashley sat down beside me, taking my hand. "Emily, he's been seeing his secretary, Brittany, for months. Everyone at his office knows." She squeezed my hand tighter. "I wanted to tell you, but I wasn't sure." The tea in my smicolak turned to ice. Brittany, the way they'd looked at each other during the party suddenly made horrible sense. "She was there tonight. They were laughing at me." "Ashley, in front of everyone! That bastard!" Ashley's voice shook with anger. "After everything you've done for him!" I stared into my tea, watching the ripples from my trembling hands. 10 years of marriage, of supporting his career, of trying to be the perfect wife, all thrown away for a younger woman. "What am I going to do?" I whispered, more to myself than to Ashley. My sister's response surprised me. "You're going to get even!" With shaking hands, I opened my phone the next morning. Ashley sat beside me on her worn leather couch, her presence giving me strength. "You need to see everything," she said softly. "No more hiding from the truth." I scrolled through John's social media, my heart pounding. There they were, dozens of photos I'd never seen before. John and Brittany at restaurants I'd never been to, her sitting at his desk after hours wearing his suit jacket, coffee dates, secret smiles, and lingering touches, all documented for anyone to see. "Look at the dates," Ashley pointed out. The oldest photo was from 6 months ago, right when John started working late, right when the cruel comments began, right when I stopped being good enough. "There's more," Ashley said, pulling up Brittany's profile. My smicolak churned as I saw what she'd posted just last night, hours after the party. "Some women just can't take a hint. Time to upgrade." The photo showed my husband's hand holding hers, my anniversary ring visible on his finger. "He didn't even take off his ring," I whispered, the final piece of cruel irony hitting me. "He humiliated me wearing the ring I gave him." Ashley wrapped her arm around my shoulders as fresh tears fell. "Emily, look at me," she said firmly. "You're not the one who should be ashamed. They are." Just then, my phone buzzed. A text from John. "You're being dramatic. Come home so we can talk about this like adults." Another buzz. "You're embarrassing yourself by running away." And another. "This is why we have problems. You can't handle anything anymore." I stared at the messages, seeing them for what they were, manipulation, pure and simple. Each word was designed to make me doubt myself, to crawl back to him. "You know what the worst part is?" I said, looking up at Ashley. "I believed I was the problem, that if I just tried harder, dressed better, stayed quieter." "That's what he wanted you to think," Ashley replied, taking my phone and placing it face down. "But now you know the truth. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" I sat in silence for a moment, something shifting inside me. The pain was still there, but something else was growing stronger. Anger, pure, justified anger. First, I said, my voice steadier than it had been all night. I'm going to call a lawyer. The next morning, as Ashley busied herself in the kitchen, I found myself staring into her hallway mirror. Dark circles under my eyes, pale skin. I looked exactly like the defeated woman John had always seen me as. But then, something caught my eye behind my reflection, a camera, sitting quietly on the bookshelf. You still have this? I asked, picking it up and feeling the familiar weight of it in my hands. Memories flooded back. Before John, before I gave up everything for his career, I had been a photographer. Not just any photographer, but one who was good, who loved capturing the world in a way that felt like magic. Of course, Ashley said with a soft smile, watching me turn the camera over. Remember how you used to light up behind that thing? You saw beauty in everything. Until John said it was just a hobby, I muttered, the sting of his dismissive words still fresh in my memory. Real careers make money, Emily. Stop playing around with that camera. Ashley set a cup of coffee in front of me and looked me straight in the eyes. You know, my friend Rachel is getting married next month. Her photographer just canceled. I looked up sharply. Ashley, I haven't shot anything in years. But you could, she insisted, her voice firm. The Emily I know is still in there, the one who made magic with that camera. Just then, my phone buzzed with a message from John. The house feels empty without you. I miss you. Then, immediately after. Though maybe it's time we both accept we're getting older. Changes happen. I turned off my phone, a clarity settling in. While I had been mourning my marriage, John was already trying to manipulate me again. Rachel's wedding, I said, the idea taking hold. Does she still need a photographer? Ashley's face lit up. Let me call her right now! Within the hour, I had my first client. 2 hours later, I was at the local camera shop getting my old equipment serviced. David, the owner, spent an hour with me, patiently helping me pick out new lenses. His kind eyes and gentle demeanor were a sharp contrast to John's constant criticism. You've got a good eye, David commented, looking through some of my old work. These are special. For the first time in years, I felt a spark of pride not in being someone's wife, but in my own talent, in what I had done with my own hands. As I left the shop with my equipment, David called after me. We have a weekly photography group that meets here. You should join us sometime. Maybe I will, I replied, feeling lighter than I had in months. Rachel's wedding turned out to be just the beginning. Her photos went viral on social media, and suddenly my phone was buzzing for a different reason. Booking requests. Ashley helped me set up a business page, and within weeks, I had more clients than I could handle. One afternoon, as I was editing photos at Ashley's house, David from the camera shop stopped by with some equipment I'd ordered. He paused when he saw my work on the laptop screen. You found your style again, he said, leaning in to look closer. The way you capture emotions. It's rare. I smiled, a sense of fulfillment bubbling inside me. For the first time in years, I was living for me, not for someone else. I felt my cheeks warm at his genuine praise, so different from John's backhanded compliments. Before he left, David mentioned again about the photography group. This time, I said yes. That's when John decided to make his move. He showed up at Ashley's house unannounced, Brittany waiting in his car. The old me would have hidden inside, but I had clients waiting and a photography session to prepare for. Emily, he called out as I loaded my equipment into my car. You're being childish, running around with that camera again. Really? I straightened up, meeting his eyes. I'm not running, John. I'm working. Working? He laughed, that cruel laugh I knew so well. Taking pictures at birthday parties isn't work. Come home. We can fix this. So, I saw Brittany shift uncomfortably in his car, checking her phone. Looking at them both, I finally saw the truth. They deserved each other. No, John, I said calmly, closing my car trunk. We can't fix this, but I'm fixing myself. His face darkened. You'll regret this. You're nothing without me. Who's going to want a middle-aged woman with a camera? I smiled, thinking of my growing client list, of David's encouraging words, of the confidence I'd found behind my lens. That's where you're wrong. I'm not nothing. I never was. As I drove away, I caught a glimpse of John's stunned face in my rearview mirror. My phone started buzzing with his messages, but I didn't need to read them anymore. I had a wedding to shoot, a photography group to join, and a new life to build. For the first time since that horrible party, I felt truly free. But I wasn't finished yet. 2 months later, I sat in my makeshift studio at Ashley's house looking at the invitation in my hands. Our cousin Amy was hosting a big family reunion. Everyone would be there, including John and Brittany. "You don't have to go," Ashley said, watching me carefully. But I had already made up my mind. "I do." I picked up my camera, a spark of an idea igniting inside me. "And I'm going to be the photographer," I said with determination. Ashley's eyes widened in disbelief, but soon understanding flickered in them. "Emily, are you sure?" she asked, concern tinging her voice. I opened my laptop and pulled up the folder I'd been carefully compiling over the last few weeks. Screenshots of John's messages to other women, not just Brittany. There were bank statements showing payments for hotels and lavish gifts, and photos from my clients who worked at his company capturing compromising moments of John and Brittany. "Remember how John loves an audience?" I said calmly as I scrolled through the evidence. "How he needed everyone watching when he humiliated me?" Just then, David knocked on the open door, holding the special lenses I'd asked for. "Hey, I brought those lenses you wanted," he said, noticing the tension in the air. "Everything okay?" I showed him the invitation. "I'm going to give my husband exactly what he wants, an audience." David sat down beside me, his hand finding mine. Over the past few months, he had become more than just a mentor. He understood my need for justice, but also my need to do it on my own terms. "Just promise me one thing," David said softly, his voice full of care. "Do this for yourself, not for him." I squeezed his hand, grateful for his unwavering support. "That's exactly why I'm doing it. My camera tells the truth, David. It's time everyone sees John's truth." We spent the next week meticulously planning every detail. I prepared a slideshow of my recent work. Weddings, family portraits, and events, beautiful moments that showcased my success. But hidden within the collection were the photos that told a different story, the ones that exposed who John really was. The night before the reunion, I stood in front of the mirror, feeling a sense of transformation. Gone was the insecure woman in the blue dress. In her place was a stronger version of myself, someone who had rediscovered her power, all through the lens of her camera. My phone buzzed with a text from John. "Heard you're photographing Michael Laro. Try not to embarrass yourself." I smiled at his message. He still thought he held all the power, but what he didn't realize was that tomorrow, everyone would see the truth through my lens. The family reunion was already in full swing when I arrived, camera in hand. I could feel John's eyes following me as I moved through the crowd, snapping photos of happy families and laughing children. "Well, look who's playing photographer." John's voice cut through the chatter, dripping with sarcasm. "How cute." Brittany giggled beside him, wearing a dress that seemed far too youthful for the occasion. I simply smiled, focusing on my work. Click. John's hand on Brittany's waist. Click. His wedding ring still gleaming under the light. Click. Their matching smug expressions, unaware of the storm I was quietly capturing. Finally, Cousin Amy stood up, announcing that it was time for the slideshow I'd prepared. "Emily's been kind enough to share some of her recent work with us," she said, dimming the lights in the room. The first few images that appeared on the screen were filled with gasps of admiration. Wedding photos, graduation portraits, and family moments, all showcasing the beauty I'd captured in the last few months. But I watched John's face closely as his smirk slowly began to fade. He knew what was coming. Then came the other photos. Click. John and Brittany leaving a hotel. Click. Bank statements showing jewelry purchases. Jewelry Brittany was wearing right now. Click. Messages to other women, each one dated during our marriage. The room fell silent. Brittany stepped away from John, her face pale. "You said your wife knew. You said she was okay with us." I stepped forward, my voice clear and strong. 10 years ago, I married a man who convinced me I was nothing without him. 2 months ago, he humiliated me at our anniversary party. I looked directly at John, but he forgot something important. A photographer's job is to show the truth. John lunged for the laptop, but David was faster, stepping between us. "Don't," he said quietly, his presence steady beside me. "You had your audience last time." I continued. "Now it's my turn. I'm filing for divorce, John, and thanks to these photos, I don't think your company will be too happy about your relationship with your secretary." The whispers started. Family members turned away from John. Brittany grabbed her purse and practically ran from the room. But I wasn't finished. "Oh, and one more thing," I said, picking up my camera. "I'm not just playing photographer. I own a successful studio now, which means I can afford a really good lawyer." John's face turned red with rage, but he had no power here. Not anymore. As he stormed out, I felt nothing but relief. The truth had finally come out through my lens. The weeks following the family reunion passed in a blur of sweet justice. John's company launched an investigation after receiving copies of my photos. Both he and Brittany were asked to resign. His carefully built reputation crumbled as quickly as our marriage had. I moved out of Ashley's house and into my own apartment above my new photography studio. David helped me paint the walls and set up my equipment, our hands brushing together as we worked. We didn't need to rush anything. We both knew we had all the time in the world. One morning, while I was editing wedding photos, my lawyer called. John had signed the divorce papers without a fight. His last message to me read, "You've ruined everything." I smiled, remembering how those words would have crushed me months ago. Now they felt like freedom. "You okay?" David asked, bringing me my favorite coffee. I looked around my studio, at the beautiful photos on the walls, proof of my talent and hard work. Through my window, I could see clients arriving for their sessions, excited to have their stories told through my lens. "You know what?" I said, taking David's hand. "I am." My phone buzzed with another booking request. Life was moving forward, better than before. The woman John had tried to shame at that party was gone. In her place was someone stronger, someone who had learned to see her worth through the lens of her camera. 1 year later, I stood in my expanded studio, adjusting my camera for an upcoming wedding shoot. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd become one of the most sought-after wedding photographers in town. My photos didn't just capture moments. They told stories of real love, the kind I'd finally found for myself. David walked in with 2 cups of coffee, just like he did every morning since we'd moved in together. As he kissed my cheek, I caught our reflection in the studio window, both of us smiling, both of us genuinely happy. Last week, I heard John had tried to reconcile with Brittany, only to find she'd moved on with someone closer to her age. He'd sent me one final message. "I miss who we were." I didn't respond. That chapter of my life was closed. My story could have ended at that family party with tears and humiliation. Instead, it became a story of rediscovery, strength, and true love through my camera lens. I hadn't just captured other people's happiness, I'd found my own. Now, when I photograph weddings, I always tell my brides the same thing. Make sure the person beside you loves you enough to celebrate your success, not tear you down. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even, it's about getting better. Have you ever reached the point where everything you thought you knew about your life, your marriage, and your worth shatters in an instant? Emily's world came crashing down at her 10th wedding anniversary party, where her husband, John, humiliated her in front of family and friends. His cruel toast, mocking her appearance and belittling her dreams, was the catalyst for her awakening. It wasn't just an embarrassing moment, it was the wake-up call she needed to see her marriage for what it really was. The truth? She had been nothing more than an accessory to John's ego, and Brittany, his secretary, was just the final insult. But Emily didn't just accept defeat. After an emotional breakdown at her sister Ashley's house, she found the strength to rediscover herself. With her camera in hand, she decided to document the truth not just of her marriage's destruction, but of her journey to rebuild. With Ashley's support and a series of brutal discoveries, Emily moved forward, taking control of her life in ways she never thought possible. What started as a painful chapter became a powerful turning point. By documenting John's lies and betrayal, Emily turned the tables on him, showing the world his true colors. Through her lens, Emily not only reclaimed her identity, but also built a thriving photography business, proving that sometimes the best revenge is simply thriving and growing. As she stood before her camera, capturing true love and joy for others, she realized that she had finally found happiness in herself, far beyond John's reach. What would you do if you were in Emily's shoes? Would you find the strength to rise, or would you let the pain define you? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more empowering stories.
I should have known something was wrong when my mother didn't even look at me during my graduation ceremony. She was too busy fussing over my half-sister Sadie's hair, making sure every strand was perfect for the photos she wasn't even supposed to be in. This was my day, at least it was supposed to be. My name is Tessa and I graduated high school yesterday. Today I'm sitting in the campus library, staring at an email that's making my blood run cold. Dear Miss Whitmore, we confirm receipt of your withdrawal from fall admission. I read the words again and again, my hands shaking. I never sent a withdrawal letter to Stanford. This was my dream, the escape plan I'd been working toward for the past 4 years. Something wasn't adding up. There you are. Sadie's voice cut through my thoughts. She was leaning against the doorframe, twirling her perfectly styled hair. Mom's looking everywhere for you. We're about to head to Rosetta's for my early graduation celebration lunch. My graduation was yesterday, I said, my voice flat. Yours isn't for another year. Sadie shrugged, examining her manicured nails. Dad says it's never too early to celebrate success. Besides, I already got accepted to Yale. Early admission. She paused, her lips curving into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Oh wait, weren't you supposed to hear back from Stanford by now? The way she said it, something in her tone made my stomach drop. I glanced back at the email, then at her phone clutched in her hand. Suddenly, the pieces started falling into place. You did this, I whispered, the realization hitting me like a punch to the gut. You hacked my email and withdrew my application. Sadie's expression didn't change, but her eyes glittered. Prove it. Before I could respond, my mother's voice echoed through the library. Girls, what's taking so long? Grant's waiting in the car. I watched as Sadie transformed, her face softening into the perfect daughter mask she wore so well. Coming, Mom. I found her. My mother appeared behind Sadie, looking immaculate as always in her designer dress. Tessa, why are you still in here? Everyone's waiting. And please tell me you're not wearing those ratty jeans to lunch. I looked down at my favorite pair of worn jeans, suddenly feeling shabby and small. I'm not feeling well, I lied. I think I'll skip lunch. Don't be ridiculous, my mother said, but her attention was already back on Sadie, adjusting her daughter's collar. This is a family celebration. For what? The words burst out before I could stop them. My graduation was yesterday, and none of you even stayed for the whole ceremony. Oh, honey, my mother sighed, that familiar look of disappointment crossing her face. We had to leave early for Sadie's Yale interview prep. You know how important that was. Besides, you're just going to beauty school now, right? I froze. I hadn't told anyone about applying to beauty school. It was my backup plan, something I'd only researched in secret. Sadie's smirk told me everything I needed to know. She'd been monitoring my emails for longer than I'd realized. Actually, I said, standing up and gathering my things, I'm not feeling well at all. I think I need to go lie down. Suit yourself, my mother said, already turning away. Come on, Sadie, darling. We don't want to keep your father waiting. I watched them leave, Sadie throwing one last triumphant glance over her shoulder. As their footsteps faded, I pulled out my phone and dialed the one person who had always been in my corner. Grandma Ruth? It's Tessa. I need your help. My voice cracked slightly. Something's happened and I don't know what to do. Come over, sweetheart, my grandmother's warm voice replied. And bring those college emails with you. We'll figure this out together. As I gathered my things to leave, I caught sight of my reflection in the library window. For the first time in years, I didn't see the shadow of my perfect half-sister or my mother's disappointment. I saw someone who was done being pushed around. Sadie might think she'd won, but she had no idea what she'd just started. Grandma Ruth's kitchen always smelled like vanilla and hope. As I sat at her worn oak table, clutching a mug of tea, I could almost pretend everything was normal. But the Stanford withdrawal email glaring from my phone screen said otherwise. That girl has gone too far this time, Ruth said, her usually gentle voice sharp with anger. She was already dialing her phone. I'm calling Marla. Your aunt needs to know about this. I reached across the table and caught her wrist. Please don't. Not yet. The last thing I needed was another family drama. I need to handle this myself. Ruth set the phone down but fixed me with that knowing look she'd perfected over 70 years. And how exactly do you plan to do that, sweetheart? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Mom's name flashed across the screen, followed by a string of messages. Where are you? Grant is furious you missed lunch. Come home now. I switched the phone off and pushed it away. I can't go back there tonight. Of course you can't, Ruth said, already heading to the spare bedroom. You'll stay here. But tomorrow you need a plan. She was right. I needed more than just a plan. I needed leverage. Sadie had been playing this game longer than me, and she'd gotten sloppy. There had to be evidence of what she'd done. The next morning, I walked into our kitchen to find Grant and Mom having one of their quiet conversations that always seemed to be about me. They fell silent when I entered. Nice of you to finally join us, Grant said, not looking up from his tablet. Your mother tells me you've been making some interesting career choices. I grabbed an apple from the counter, trying to keep my voice steady. I haven't made any choices yet. Beauty school, he scoffed. That's hardly a career. Besides, we've already discussed your role in the family business. No, they'd discussed it. I'd just been told. Actually, I said, I wanted to talk about my Stanford application. The kitchen went quiet. Too quiet. Mom's coffee cup froze halfway to her lips. Oh, that reminds me. Sadie breezed in, perfectly timed as always. Dad, remember that investment opportunity one told you about? The one through Chad's father's firm? Grant's face lit up, the way it never did for me. The tech startup? Have they opened up spots for early investors? They have, Sadie smiled, shooting me a quick glance. But we should discuss it privately. You know how these things are. I watched as she led Grant away, effectively shutting down any conversation about Stanford. But not before I caught a glimpse of something on her phone screen. An email draft with a familiar header. Tessa, Mom said, finally acknowledging me. About yesterday. Save it, I cut her off. I need to get ready for work. Work, she blinked. What work? My shift at Mel's Diner starts in an hour. I hadn't planned to tell her, but suddenly I wanted her to know. I've been working there for 3 weeks. Her face crumpled into that familiar look of disappointment. A diner? What will people think? They might think I'm responsible. Independent. I met her eyes. Like Sadie. Mom's expression hardened. Don't start with that jealousy again. Your sister, half-sister, works hard for everything she gets. Maybe if you showed half her initiative. I laughed, and the sound surprised us both. You have no idea what Sadie's capable of, do you? What's that supposed to mean? But I was already heading upstairs. I had a shift to get to, and more importantly, I had a plan forming. Sadie wasn't the only one who could access emails. And I had a feeling that draft I'd glimpsed on her phone would be very interesting to Grant if he knew what his perfect daughter was really planning with Chad's father's firm. As I changed into my diner uniform, I heard Sadie's laughter floating up from Grant's study. She thought she had everyone fooled. But she'd forgotten one thing. I'd been watching her tricks for years. And now it was my turn to play. The thing about working at a diner is you hear everything. People forget you're there, like you're just part of the furniture. That's how I overheard Chad Miller bragging to his friends about the foolproof investment scheme he and Sadie were planning. I was wiping down their table when Chad's words made me freeze. Grant Alden won't know what hit him, Chad laughed, not noticing me. Sadie's got him wrapped around her finger. One signature from Daddy Dearest, and we're set. My hand tightened around the rag. Before I could hear more, Mel called me from the kitchen. Tessa, your grandmother's on the phone. Says it's urgent. Ruth never called me at work. Something was wrong. Sweetheart. Her voice was tight with worry. Sadie's here. She's telling your mother some pretty serious stories about you. My stomach dropped. What kind of stories? She's saying you've been stealing from Grant's office. That you're trying to sabotage her Yale acceptance. Tessa. She has screenshots. Of course she did. Sadie never made a move without backup. I'll be right there, I said, already untying my apron. When I pulled up to our house, Aunt Marla's car was in the driveway. Great. Sadie had called in the whole cavalry. Inside, they were waiting in the living room like some kind of intervention. Mom was crying, actually crying, while Sadie sat beside her, the perfect picture of concern. Grant stood by the fireplace, his face stormy. Aunt Marla looked uncertain, glancing between everyone. Show her, Sadie said softly, handing her phone to Grant. He thrust it at me. On the screen was an email draft, one I'd supposedly written, detailing plans to hack into his company's accounts. It was dated the same day as my Stanford withdrawal. I didn't write that, I said, but my voice sounded weak even to me. It's from your email account, Grant said. Just like the Stanford withdrawal. Which I also didn't write. I looked at Mom, pleading. You have to believe me. Sadie's setting me up. Oh, here we go again, Sadie sighed. Always blaming me for your mistakes. Mistakes? I laughed, the sound harsh and unfamiliar. Like how you and Chad are planning to scam Grant out of his investment money? The room went silent. Sadie's face flickered for just a moment before she recovered. What is she talking about? Grant demanded. She's lying, Sadie said quickly. She's just jealous because Chad asked me to prom instead of her. I heard him at the diner, I pressed on. Ask him about the foolproof investment scheme you two cooked up. Enough. Mom stood up, mascara streaking her cheeks. Tessa, how dare you make up such horrible lies about your sister? Half-sister, I corrected automatically. See. Sadie's eyes welled with perfect tears. She's always trying to divide our family. First the stealing, now these accusations. Aunt Marla finally spoke up. Maybe we should all take a breath. No, Grant cut her off. I want to know what's really going on. Tessa, if you can't prove these accusations, check his investment portfolio, I said. Look for any new tech startups linked to Richard Miller's firm. Grant's face changed. He pulled out his phone, fingers moving rapidly. Sadie stood up suddenly. Daddy, you don't have to. Sit down, he snapped, and for the first time, I saw real fear in Sadie's eyes. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You'll regret this. I looked up to find Sadie staring at me, her mask finally cracking. Behind the perfect makeup and practiced tears, I saw something ugly and desperate. I have to go, I said, backing toward the door. My shift isn't over. Tessa, wait. Aunt Marla called, but I was already gone. In my car, my hands shook as I gripped the steering wheel. I'd finally pushed back, but this wasn't over. Sadie wouldn't let it be. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Ruth. Come stay with me tonight. We need to talk about your beauty school application. I think I can help. I started the car, watching Sadie's silhouette in the living room window. She might have the family fooled, but she'd forgotten something important about me. I had nothing left to lose. 3 weeks after the confrontation, I found myself standing in Ruth's bathroom, surrounded by mannequin heads with half-finished hairstyles. My hands were cramping from hours of practice, but I couldn't stop. Not when I was finally getting somewhere. You're getting better, Ruth said from the doorway, watching me work. That French braid actually looks French this time. Before I could respond, my phone lit up with Grant's name. I'd been dodging his calls since the investment scheme revelation, but this time something made me answer. Where are the files? His voice was ice cold. What files? Don't play dumb, Tessa. The backup drives from my home office are missing. Sadie says she saw you in there last night. I gripped the edge of the sink. I haven't been home in 3 weeks. You know that. Then explain why your fingerprints are all over my desk. My old house key. The one I'd forgotten to return. Sadie must have. Check your security cameras, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Conveniently disabled last night. Along with Sadie's phone tracking app. Of course they were. I could almost admire how thorough she was being. Grant, think about it. Why would I? Because you're desperate, he cut in. Working at that diner, living with your grandmother. You're not exactly making good life choices. The mannequin head toppled as I spun around, nearly knocking over my carefully organized styling tools. At least I'm not the one being scammed by my own daughter. We've investigated Chad's investment proposal. Everything checks out. You're just trying to cause trouble, like always. I laughed, but it came out more like a sob. Have you actually met Richard Miller? Chad's father? Or just seen the paperwork Sadie showed you? The silence on the other end told me everything. You have until tomorrow to return the files, he said finally. Or I'm calling the police. The line went dead. I looked up to find Ruth watching me, her face tight with worry. I heard, she said quietly. What are you going to do? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a text from Sadie. Meet me at Riverside Park. 1 hour. Come alone or the drives go public. I have to go, I said, already grabbing my jacket. Ruth caught my arm. Tessa, wait. There's something you should know about the trust fund your father left you. What trust fund? The one Lila's been managing since he died. You're supposed to get access when you turn 21. The world tilted sideways. Mom told me there wasn't any money left. Ruth's expression hardened. There's plenty left. Nearly $500,000. I've been trying to find the right time to tell you. My phone buzzed again. Sadie, tick-tock. I have to deal with this first, I said, heading for the door. But we're not done talking about the trust fund. Be careful, Ruth called after me. That girl fights dirty. She had no idea. At the park, Sadie was waiting by the river, looking perfectly put together as always. The missing drives sat on the bench beside her. You know, she said conversationally, I almost admire how hard you're trying. Beauty school, the diner job. It's pathetically ambitious. Where are the real drives, Sadie? She smiled. These are the real drives. But the files? Those were uploaded days ago. Insurance, you know? Against what? Against you ruining everything. Her smile vanished. Did you really think you could turn Dad against me? I'm his real daughter. You're stealing from him. I'm securing my future. Unlike you, I have plans bigger than cutting hair in some strip mall. Using Chad's fake investment scheme? Sadie's laugh was sharp. Chad, please. He's just the face of the operation. This was my idea. All of it. Including your Stanford rejection. I stepped closer. Why? What did I ever do to you? You existed, she said simply. Always there, with your sad eyes and your dead dad's trust fund. Making Mom feel guilty. Making everything complicated. The truth hit me like a physical blow. You know about the trust fund? Of course I do. Mom's been investing it in Dad's company for years. My company soon. She stood, brushing off her designer jeans. So here's the deal, walk away. From the house, the family, all of it. Or these files show everyone exactly what kind of person you really are. I stared at my half-sister, finally seeing her clearly. You really think you've won, don't you? Her smile was almost pitying. Haven't I? But as I watched her walk away, I thought about Ruth's revelation about the trust fund, about everything I'd learned working at the diner. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about winning. It's about surviving long enough to tell the truth. The box arrived on Ruth's doorstep the morning after my confrontation with Sadie. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, was a complete professional hairstyling kit. Scissors that caught the light like diamonds. Brushes with perfect bristles. Everything I'd been saving for but couldn't yet afford. Open it, Ruth urged, holding out an envelope. Read the note first. My hands shook as I unfolded the paper. For when you're ready to build your own future. Love, Aunt Marla. Before I could process this, my phone buzzed. A text from Mom. We need to talk about the trust fund. Come home. Now. Ruth touched my shoulder. You don't have to go. But I did. Because for once, I had leverage. The house looked different somehow, smaller maybe. Mom was waiting in the kitchen. Her perfect makeup couldn't hide the shadows under her eyes. Grant sat beside her, his laptop open to what looked like banking records. Where's Sadie? I asked. At Yale, Mom said quickly. Touring the campus. Really? Because I just saw her car at Chad Miller's house. Grant's head snapped up. What? Never mind that. Mom cut in. We need to discuss your father's trust fund. You mean the one you've been funneling into Grant's company? The words came out sharp, precise. The one you told me didn't exist? Mom's face went white. Who told you? Does it matter? I pulled out my phone, showing them the banking records Ruth had helped me find. What matters is it's illegal. And I have proof. Grant stood up so fast his chair toppled. Are these the files you stole? I didn't steal anything. But Sadie did. I met his eyes. Check your security footage again. The real footage, not whatever she showed you. Check the timestamps. This is ridiculous, Mom said, but her voice wavered. Sadie would never. Like she'd never hack my Stanford application? Or set up a fake investment scheme with Chad. Grant's face darkened. What investment scheme? Before I could answer, the front door slammed. Sadie stormed in, her Yale sweater wrinkled, mascara smeared. What did you do? She demanded, waving her phone. Chad just called. His father's backing out of the deal. The room went silent. Grant turned to her slowly. What deal, Sadie? She froze, realizing her mistake. For a moment, I saw panic flash across her face. Then her mask slipped back into place. Tessa's lying, she said smoothly. She's just jealous because... Stop. Grant's voice was quiet, dangerous. Show me your phone. Daddy. Now. As Sadie handed over her phone, I saw something I'd never seen before. Fear in her eyes. I should go, I said, picking up my bag. But first, I turned to Mom. I want my trust fund transferred to my name. All of it. Or I go to the police with proof of embezzlement. You wouldn't, Mom whispered. Try me. I walked out, leaving chaos behind me. Through the window, I could hear Grant's voice rising, Sadie's protests, Mom's sobs. Back at Ruth's, I found her in the garden, tending her roses. She looked up as I approached. How did it go? I sat beside her, feeling the weight of years lifting from my shoulders. I think I just burned every bridge I had left. Sometimes, Ruth said, pruning a dead branch. Bridges need to burn so you can build better ones. My phone buzzed again. A series of texts from Sadie. You're dead to this family. Hope you're happy now. You have no idea what you've started. I switched off my phone and picked up the hairstyling kit Aunt Marla had sent. The scissors felt right in my hand, like they'd been waiting for me. Want to be my first official client? I asked Ruth. She smiled, touching her silver hair. I thought you'd never ask. As I began setting up my supplies, I caught my reflection in the window. I looked different, stronger maybe, or just more certain. Sadie was right about one thing. She had no idea what she'd started. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying someone else's future. It's about finally building your own. The first rock crashed through Ruth's front window at midnight. The second one had a note attached. Leave town or worse. I knew who sent them without reading the signature. Ruth insisted on calling the police, but they just took notes and left, saying there wasn't enough evidence. Of course there wasn't. Sadie never left evidence. The next morning, I found Grant's prized Aston Martin parked in Ruth's driveway, its pristine silver paint now decorated with long, deliberate scratches. My house key was stuck in the driver's door. I didn't do this, I told the officers who showed up 20 minutes later. But Grant and Mom were already there, Sadie crying perfectly timed tears beside them. Security footage shows someone with your build, Grant said, his voice cold. Using your key. That's impossible. I was inside all night with. With me, Ruth interrupted, stepping forward. Tessa never left the house. The cameras don't lie, Sadie sniffled. Just like she didn't lie about destroying my Yale acceptance. I spun toward her. What? The admission office called this morning, Mom said, not meeting my eyes. Someone sent them evidence that Sadie cheated on her SATs. They've rescinded her acceptance. The pieces clicked together too late. I should have known Sadie wouldn't go down without taking everyone with her. Press charges, Sadie urged Grant, wiping away tears that looked almost real. She's obviously unstable. Grant pulled out his phone. I'm calling my lawyer. Wait, Ruth said. If you press charges, I'll have to tell them about the trust fund. About where that money really went. The threat hung in the air like smoke. Fine, Grant finally said. But I want her gone. Today. If I see her near our house or my car again, I'm calling the police. Our house. I laughed, the sound brittle. I grew up there. That was my father's. Your father is dead, Mom cut in. And you're no longer welcome in our home. The words hit harder than any rock through a window. Lila, Ruth gasped, but Mom was already turning away, leading Sadie to their car. Grant stayed behind. One more thing, he said, handing me an envelope. Cease and desist letter from my lawyers. Stay away from my family, my business, and especially my daughter. She's not your daughter, I shot back. She's a con artist who's bleeding you dry. The only person causing problems here is you. He glanced at Ruth's broken window. Clean up your act, Tessa. Before someone gets hurt. After they left, Ruth found me in the garden, staring at nothing. We'll fight this, she said. I have savings. We can get a lawyer. Don't. My voice sounded strange, distant. Sadie won't stop until she's destroyed everything. Then we'll start over. Together. But even as she said it, I saw Ruth press a hand to her chest, her breathing labored. The stress was getting to her. Her heart couldn't take much more. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Karma's a bitch. So am I. S. Below it was a link to a social media post going viral in our community. Pictures of Grant's car, security footage stills of someone who looked just like me, and a story about the unstable daughter who couldn't handle her sister's success. The comments were already rolling in. Always knew there was something off about her. Poor Sadie, having to deal with such a toxic sister. Lock her up before she really hurt someone. I deleted the app, but the damage was done. My reputation, my future, my family, Sadie had taken everything. I have to leave, I said quietly. Tessa, no. Look at your window, Ruth. Look at what she did to Grant's car. Next time it could be worse. It could be you. I'm not afraid of her. But I am. The admission hurt more than Mom's rejection. I'm afraid of what she'll do next. Of what I might do to stop her. Ruth took my hand, her grip surprisingly strong. Then we'll leave together. Start fresh somewhere else. I looked at my grandmother, my last real family, and made the hardest decision of my life. No, I said. I have to do this alone. Because sometimes protecting the people you love means letting them go. And sometimes revenge means walking away. At least, that's what I kept telling myself as I packed my bags, leaving everything I loved behind. 6 months after I left town, Aunt Marla's call brought me back. Ruth had died in her sleep, peaceful and quick, they said. I missed the funeral. Sadie's restraining order made sure of that. But today, standing in Ruth's lawyer's office, none of that mattered. She left you everything, the lawyer said, sliding the papers across his desk. The house, her savings, and this. He handed me an envelope, Ruth's familiar handwriting spelling out my name. Before I could open it, the door burst open. Sadie stormed in, followed by Mom and Grant. This is ridiculous, Sadie snapped. She's mentally unstable. There's no way Grandma Ruth meant to. She wasn't your grandmother, I said quietly, finding strength in the weight of Ruth's letter in my hands. Miss Alden, the lawyer interrupted. This meeting is private. Private? Grant stepped forward. After what she did to my car. To my company. I looked up sharply. What happened to your company? The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken accusations. Sadie's face had gone pale, her designer clothes suddenly looking cheaper, worn. The investment scheme, I realized. It wasn't just Chad's father, was it? How many fake investors did you create, Sadie? Shut up, she hissed. The SEC is investigating, Grant said, his voice hollow. We've lost everything. Mom wouldn't meet my eyes. We had to sell the house. I opened Ruth's letter, needing her words more than ever. As I read, my hands began to shake. All these years, I whispered. She was gathering evidence. About the trust fund, about Sadie's schemes, everything. I looked at my half-sister. She knew what you were doing before any of us. Sadie lunged for the letter, but I was faster. You can't prove anything. Actually, the lawyer cleared his throat. Mrs. Whitmore left quite extensive documentation, including emails between Miss Alden and various fake investment accounts. You're lying, Sadie's voice cracked. Daddy, tell them. Enough. Grant's shout made us all jump. Haven't you done enough damage? Sadie's mask finally cracked. I did it for us. For our family. No, I said, standing up. You did it for yourself. Just like you sabotaged my Stanford application. Just like you framed me for vandalizing Grant's car. You have no idea what it's like, she spat. Being perfect all the time. Never making mistakes. While you got to be the tragic victim everyone felt sorry for. Sorry for? I laughed. You took everything from me. And now I have nothing. Tears streaked her makeup. So congratulations. You won. I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and felt something unexpected. Pity. This wasn't about winning, I said, gathering Ruth's papers. It was about surviving you. What are you going to do? Mom asked, speaking for the first time. Press charges. I thought about Ruth, about revenge, about the cost of hatred. No, I said finally. I'm going to open a salon. In Ruth's house. I turned to Sadie. And you're going to stay away from me, or these documents go to the SEC. You can't. I can. And I will. I headed for the door, then paused. You know what the difference is between us, Sadie? I never needed to destroy you to prove my worth. Outside, the spring air felt clean, new. Ruth's letter was warm in my pocket, filled with love and one final gift. The truth that would keep Sadie out of my life forever. My phone buzzed, a text from the beauty school I'd applied to. Application accepted. I smiled, thinking of Ruth's styling tools waiting at home. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying someone else's world. It's about building your own, stronger than before. Behind me, I could hear Sadie's sobs, Mom's attempts at comfort, Grant's heavy silence. But for the first time, their drama felt distant, unimportant. I had a salon to open, a life to build, and finally, the power to make it happen on my own terms. 1 year after Ruth's death, I stood in front of my salon mirror, watching the morning light stream through newly installed windows. The sign outside read Ruth's Grace, a tribute to the woman who made it all possible. The bell chimed. Through the reflection, I saw Mom standing in the doorway, looking smaller, somehow less certain. We're not open yet, I said, continuing to arrange my styling tools. I know. She clutched her purse like a shield. I saw the article about you in the local paper. Young entrepreneur transforms historic home into thriving business. I turned, really looking at her for the first time in months. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by department store basics. Sadie's downfall had affected them all. What do you want, Mom? Sadie's in therapy, she said abruptly. Grant's filed for divorce. Everything's. She trailed off. Falling apart? She nodded, tears threatening. I found this in our old house, while we were moving out. She held out a worn envelope. It's from your father. My hands shook as I took it. Inside was a faded photograph, me at 5, sitting in his salon chair, playing with his styling tools. On the back, he'd written, "My little artist following in my footsteps." "I never told you," Mom said softly, "but the salon was his dream too. Before the cancer." She stopped, composing herself. "I was wrong, Tessa. About everything." The bell chimed again. Aunt Marla walked in, carrying a box of old styling magazines. She froze when she saw Mom. "I should go," Mom said quickly. "Stay." The word surprised us both. "I could use help organizing the magazine collection. If you want." As they sorted through the boxes, I opened the final letter from Ruth, the one I'd found hidden in her styling kit. "Dearest Tessa, by now you've probably figured out why I kept such detailed records of Sadie's schemes. But that wasn't my real gift to you. Your father left you more than just a trust fund. He left you his talent, his dream. I saw it every time you picked up those scissors. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's getting free." A text lit up my phone. "Sadie, for the first time since the lawyer's office." "I'm sorry," it read. "Nothing more." I deleted it without responding. Some bridges stay burned. The morning sun caught the salon's new sign, casting warm shadows across the floor. Mom and Marla's quiet conversation mixed with the rustle of magazines, the gentle hum of hair dryers warming up. "First clients in 15 minutes, I announced, straightening my work apron. "Either help set up or head out." Mom stood uncertainly, then reached for a broom. Marla smiled, continuing to organize magazines. I looked at my reflection one last time. Not a victim, not a revenge seeker, just a woman building something new from the ashes of what was lost. Ruth was right. The best revenge wasn't exposing Sadie's schemes, or watching my family's perfect facade crumble. It wasn't even succeeding despite their doubts. The best revenge was discovering I never needed revenge at all. I just needed to find my own path. The bell chimed again, my first client of the day. I picked up my scissors, feeling their familiar weight. In the mirror, I caught a glimpse of something in Mom's expression, pride maybe, or regret. Perhaps both. But I wasn't doing this for her, or for Sadie, or even for Ruth anymore. I was doing it for that little girl in the photograph, playing with her father's styling tools, dreaming of creating something beautiful. "Welcome to Ruth's Grace," I said to my client, my voice strong and sure. "What are we creating today?" Behind me, the past lingered in shadows, Sadie's schemes, Mom's neglect, all the pain and betrayal. But ahead lay something brighter. A future built not on revenge or resentment, but on the simple joy of following my own dreams. Sometimes that's the greatest victory of all.
I never thought my life would change because of a vintage Hermes scarf, but that's exactly what happened last spring at Second Chance's thrift store. My name is Felicity, and I probably spend way too much time hunting for hidden fashion treasures between racks of other people's cast-offs. But this particular Thursday was different. I had just spotted the distinctive orange box peeking out from under a pile of scarves when another hand reached for it at the same time. "Oh, sorry." A deep voice chuckled. "Ladies first." I looked up to find myself staring into the warmest brown eyes I'd ever seen. The guy was tall, with slightly messy dark hair and a camera slung around his neck. He had that artsy vibe that always made my heart skip a beat. "No, please, go ahead," I said, trying to sound casual while my pulse did a little dance. I was just being nosy anyway. Actually, I could use a second opinion. He picked up the box and carefully opened it. Inside was a pristine silk scarf in swirling shades of blue and gold. "I'm doing a vintage-inspired photo shoot tomorrow, but I know nothing about fashion. Is this something special?" "That's a genuine Hermes scarf from the 1960s, I said, unable to hide my excitement. "See the hand-rolled edges and the artist's signature? It's probably worth at least $500. His eyebrows shot up. "And it's priced at $15? How do you know all this?" "I'm a bit of a fashion nerd. I can spot designer pieces from across the room." I smiled. "I'm Felicity." "Nolan Brooks," he said, extending his hand. "Fashion nerd meets photography nerd. Would you maybe want to grab a coffee and tell me more about vintage fashion? I could really use your expertise for this shoot." That's how it started. Coffee turned into dinner, dinner turned into dating, and 3 months later I was head over heels in love with Nolan. Everything was perfect until I met his sister Celeste. The first time was at their parents' house for Sunday dinner. I'd spent hours choosing the perfect outfit, a vintage Diane von Furstenberg wrap dress I'd scored for $30. Nolan's parents, Evelyn and Gerald, were warm and welcoming, but Celeste's smile never quite reached her eyes. "Oh, how creative of you to wear secondhand clothes," she said, sipping her wine. "I could never." "Who knows where they've been?" "Celeste," Evelyn warned, but her daughter just shrugged. "I'm just saying, if you're going to be part of the Brooks family, you might want to consider upgrading your wardrobe. We have certain standards to maintain." I felt my cheeks burn as Nolan squeezed my hand under the table. Actually, Felicity has an amazing eye for fashion. She's helping style my upcoming magazine shoot. "Really?" Celeste's perfectly manicured eyebrows arched. "How interesting. I just got engaged to Marcus Hale, of Hale Industries. We're planning the wedding of the season." Something in her tone made me uneasy, but I pushed the feeling aside. This was Nolan's sister, after all. I needed to make this work. Later that night, as Nolan drove me home, I caught him glancing at me worriedly. "I'm sorry about Celeste. She can be intense sometimes." "It's fine," I said, even though it wasn't. "She's probably just protective of her family." What I didn't say was how I'd seen Celeste watching me throughout dinner, studying every move I made, every word I spoke. I didn't mention how she'd cornered me in the kitchen and grilled me about my background, my job, my plans for the future. And I definitely didn't tell Nolan about the way she'd smiled when I mentioned wanting a small, intimate wedding someday, a smile that made me feel like I'd just handed her ammunition. I had no idea then that this was just the beginning, that Celeste Brooks was about to turn my life into her own personal chess game. But looking back now, I should have seen it coming. After all, the best vintage pieces always come with a history, and some of them hide dark secrets beneath their beautiful surfaces. The next few weeks were a blur of family dinners and forced smiles. I kept telling myself things would get better with Celeste, but each interaction left me feeling more like an outsider. Tonight was supposed to be different, a casual barbecue at the Brooks house to celebrate Nolan's latest magazine cover. I arrived early to help Evelyn in the kitchen, wearing a vintage Chanel blazer I'd restored myself. As I chopped vegetables, she touched the fabric admiringly. "You have such a gift, Felicity. The way you bring these pieces back to life." She paused, glancing toward the door. "I hope you know that, Gerald, and I think you're wonderful for Nolan." Before I could respond, Celeste swept in wearing what looked like this season's entire Gucci collection. "Mother, Marcus is bringing his parents tonight. Did you remember to get the expensive wine I asked for?" "I thought this was just a family dinner," I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. Celeste's laugh was like ice crackling. "Oh, didn't Nolan tell you?" I turned it into an engagement celebration. Marcus's father is thinking of featuring Nolan's photography in their company's new campaign. She touched my blazer. "Is this secondhand? How brave of you." I felt my jaw tighten, but before I could respond, Nolan appeared, wrapping his arms around me from behind. "Hey, beautiful. That blazer looks amazing on you." "It should," Celeste said. "The real thing costs about $12,000. She turned to her mother. "We need to set up the formal dining room instead of eating outside. The Hales aren't exactly barbecue people." I watched Evelyn's face fall. She'd spent all day preparing Nolan's favorite grilled dishes. But Nolan wanted. "Nolan understands how important this is for the family, don't you?" Celeste's tone was sweet, but her eyes were sharp as she looked at her brother. "Maybe we could do both," he suggested, already backing down. "Set up inside but keep some food on the grill?" I felt my heart sink as Evelyn quietly began moving dishes inside. This was supposed to be Nolan's celebration, but somehow Celeste had hijacked it, just like she seemed to be doing with everything else in our lives. During dinner, I found myself seated between Marcus's mother, who kept asking if my blazer was some kind of costume, and Celeste, who took every opportunity to mention the exclusive designer boutiques she was considering for her wedding dress. "Of course, Felicity probably has some creative ideas for her own wedding," Celeste said suddenly, turning to me. What were you thinking? Something vintage, I assume? Table went quiet. Nolan and I hadn't even discussed marriage yet. I felt my face heat up as everyone waited for my response. I haven't really. Oh, that's right, Celeste interrupted. You haven't set a date yet, or even gotten engaged. She patted my hand. Don't worry, when it happens, I'll help you plan everything. After all, I'll have plenty of experience after my wedding. Gerald cleared his throat. Celeste, perhaps we could focus on celebrating Nolan's achievement tonight? Of course, Daddy. Celeste raised her glass. To Nolan's success and to family. Later, as guests were leaving, I overheard Celeste talking to Marcus in the hallway. Poor thing, she tries so hard to fit in. But you can't buy class, can you? I mean, showing up in secondhand clothes to meet your parents? She seemed nice enough, Marcus replied. And that blazer was actually quite elegant. Oh, honey, you're too kind. But trust me, she's not Brooke's material. Nolan will figure that out eventually. I slipped away before they could see me, my hands shaking as I gathered my things. In the kitchen, I found Gerald washing dishes alone. Don't let her get to you, he said quietly, not looking up. Some people mistake cruelty for sophistication. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. As I waited for Nolan to drive me home, I caught my reflection in the window, the proud vintage blazer suddenly feeling like a costume. For the first time, I wondered if loving Nolan was worth the price of admission to his world. What I didn't know then was that Celeste was just getting started. And her next move would force me to choose between keeping the peace and keeping my self-respect. The moment everything changed happened at the Brooks family lake house. Nolan had just proposed the night before, a perfect sunset moment that felt like a dream. I should have known better than to think Celeste would let me have even 24 hours of pure happiness. I was helping Evelyn prepare lunch when I realized I'd left my engagement ring upstairs after washing my hands. As I approached Nolan's old bedroom, I heard Celeste's voice floating through the cracked door. It's actually perfect timing, she was saying. Now I can use all of Felicity's wedding ideas for my own. She'll never suspect I've been collecting them for months. I froze, my hand hovering over the doorknob. Are you sure that's necessary? It was Marcus's voice, sounding uncertain. Your brother just got engaged. Oh, please, their wedding will be some quirky vintage affair. I'm doing everyone a favor by elevating her ideas into something actually sophisticated. Besides, Nolan's been telling me everything. Her dress design, the venue she wants, even the antique lace she found for the veil. My stomach lurched. I'd shared those details with Nolan in private moments, dreaming together about our future. He'd promised they were our secrets. Speaking of which, Celeste continued, I already called her dream venue and booked it for the weekend before their date. The deposit cleared this morning. Won't that seem obvious? Marcus asked. That's the beauty of it. She'll look crazy if she accuses me of copying her. For all, I'm the one getting married first now. Everyone will think she's the one copying me. I must have made a sound because the conversation stopped abruptly. I hurried back downstairs, my hands shaking so badly I had to grip the railing. In the kitchen, Nolan was helping his mother with the salad. He smiled when he saw me, but it faded when he noticed my expression. Hey, what's wrong? Can we talk? My voice sounded strange, even to me. Privately. Side on the deck, the lake sparkled mockingly in the summer sun. I turned to face him, fighting to keep my voice steady. Have you been telling Celeste about our wedding plans? Well, yeah, she's been really interested lately. She said she wants to help. He looked confused. Isn't that a good thing? She's planning to steal everything, Nolan. I just heard her talking to Marcus. She's already booked our venue for her wedding, the one I showed you in secret. His face went through a series of emotions, surprise, doubt, defense. Come on, that's got to be a misunderstanding. Celeste wouldn't. Wouldn't what? Deliberately try to hurt me? That's all she's done since we met. The words burst out before I could stop them. "You're overreacting," he said, using that placating tone that suddenly made me want to scream. "She's my sister, Felicity. She's just excited about weddings right now." Just then, Celeste appeared in the doorway, wearing a concerned expression that made my skin crawl. "Is everything okay out here?" I thought I heard raised voices. "Did you book the Riverside Manor for your wedding?" I asked directly. "Oh, that." She smiled brightly. "Yes, isn't it perfect? I remembered how much you loved it when you mentioned it at dinner last month. I hope you don't mind. Great minds think alike, right?" I looked at Nolan, waiting for him to say something to defend me. He shifted uncomfortably. "Maybe we could all just..." "Just what?" I interrupted, slipping off my engagement ring. "Just pretend this isn't happening? Just let her steal every piece of our wedding like she's been planning for months?" "Felicity, don't be dramatic," Celeste said, her voice dripping with fake concern. "If you're not ready to plan a wedding, just say so." I placed the ring on the deck railing, my vision blurring with tears of rage. "You're right. I'm not ready. Not for this family, not for a husband who won't stand up for me, and definitely not for a sister-in-law who treats my life like it's her personal shopping catalog." As I walked away, I heard Nolan call my name, but it was Celeste's voice that followed me. "See? I told you she wasn't Brooke's material." I got in my car and drove, not knowing then that this wasn't the end, it was just the beginning of my awakening. 3 days after leaving the lake house, I found myself sorting through vintage dresses at work when Gerald Brooks walked into my shop. He looked out of place among the racks of second-hand clothes, his expensive suit a stark contrast to the worn wooden floors. "Interesting place you have here," he said, running his finger along a 1950s Dior dress. "Evelyn mentioned you restore these?" I nodded, unable to find my voice. Was he here to convince me to come back? To defend Celeste? "Nolan's been miserable," he continued, but his tone wasn't accusatory. "Though I suspect that's not entirely about losing you." "What do you mean?" "The Hales pulled their advertising campaign. Apparently, Marcus had some concerns about working with our family. He picked up a vintage brooch from the display case. Celeste is blaming you, of course." My hands stilled on the dress I was mending. "I haven't spoken to Marcus." "No, but he's not blind. Or stupid." Gerald set the brooch down carefully. "He came by the house yesterday, asking questions about Celeste's sudden interest in vintage weddings and unique venues." Before I could respond, the shop door chimed. Nolan walked in, stopping short when he saw his father. "Dad? What are you doing here?" "Just leaving, actually." Gerald squeezed my shoulder as he passed. "Remember what I said about authenticity, Felicity. Some things can't be copied no matter how hard people try." After he left, Nolan and I stood in uncomfortable silence. He looked tired, his usually perfect hair messy like he'd been running his hands through it. "You left your ring," he said finally. "You left me to face your sister alone." He winced. "I talked to her. She agreed to change her wedding venue." "That's not the point, Nolan." I picked up a damaged silk scarf, focusing on the torn edges rather than his face. "She's been systematically trying to destroy anything good in my life, and you've been helping her do it. She's my sister, and I was supposed to be your wife." My voice cracked on the last word. "But you couldn't even tell her to back off when she was literally stealing our wedding plans." "I didn't think..." He stopped, frustrated. "Look, I brought something to show you." He pulled out his phone, showing me a series of texts from Celeste. My stomach turned as I read them, detailed questions about my wedding ideas, our private conversations, even photos she'd asked him to take of my design sketches. See? She was just excited about wedding planning. She wanted to help. I stared at him, realizing with sudden clarity that he truly couldn't see what was right in front of him. Or worse, he didn't want to. "Your father said Marcus pulled the advertising campaign," I said quietly. "Did you ever wonder why?" Nolan's face clouded. Celeste said you must have said something to him. Of course she did. I laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. And you believed her just like you always do. The shop door chimed again. This time it was Marcus himself, looking uncomfortable but determined. Sorry to interrupt, he said. Felicity, could we talk? About Celeste. Nolan stepped between us. Whatever she told you about my sister. She hasn't told me anything, Marcus cut in. That's why I'm here. I need to know if I'm making a mistake trusting Celeste. The irony of the moment wasn't lost on me, Celeste's fiancé coming to me for the truth while her own brother stood there defending her lies. I looked at Nolan, giving him one last chance. Do you want to tell him about the texts? About how your sister has been planning to steal my wedding piece by piece? Nolan's silence was deafening. I think you should go, I told him, turning away to hide my tears. Both of you. Whatever Celeste is or isn't doing, it's not my problem anymore. As they left, I heard Marcus ask Nolan, Did you really not see what she was doing to Felicity? I didn't hear Nolan's response, but I didn't need to. His silence had already told me everything I needed to know about where his loyalties lay. What I didn't realize then was that Marcus's visit would set in motion a chain of events that would change everything, not just for me and Nolan, but for the entire Brooks family. A week after Marcus's visit to my shop, I received an invitation to Celeste's wedding. Not just any invitation, an exact replica of the custom design I'd sketched in my private journal, the one I'd only ever shown to Nolan. My hands shook as I read the date, exactly 2 weeks before what would have been my wedding day. I was still staring at it when Evelyn called. I know this is awkward, she said, her voice strained. But Celeste insists you come. She says it would mean so much to her. I bet it would. I traced the delicate pattern I'd spent months designing. Did she tell you where she got the invitation design? A long pause. Felicity, please. She's trying to make amends. By stealing my wedding? The bitterness in my voice surprised even me. Actually, Evelyn hesitated. That's part of why I'm calling. Celeste wants you to help with her dress. She says your vintage expertise would be perfect for the alteration she needs. I almost laughed. What dress? The one she found at that little boutique in Paris. The 1950s Dior you mentioned loving? My stomach dropped. I told Nolan about that dress during a late-night conversation, describing my dream of recreating it for our wedding. Now Celeste had somehow tracked down the original. Can't, I said firmly. Please, Evelyn's voice cracked. Things are so tense in the family. Gerald barely speaks to Nolan, Marcus is asking questions about everything, and Celeste, she's not herself. Maybe if you helped, showed her some kindness. Kindness? I interrupted. Like the kindness she showed me when she systematically stole every detail of my wedding? Or the kindness Nolan showed by helping her do it? The shop door chimed. Celeste walked in, wearing a triumphant smile and carrying a garment bag. I'll call you back, I told Evelyn, hanging up before she could respond. Surprise! Celeste sang out, laying the bag across my counter. I need your magic touch with this. It's a bit delicate and you're the only one I trust. She unzipped the bag, revealing the exact dress I'd dreamed of wearing. The ivory silk was just as beautiful as I'd imagined. How did you find it? I asked, my voice hollow. Oh, Nolan mentioned how much you loved it. I had my connections track it down. She smiled sweetly. Consider this my olive branch. You help me with the alterations, and maybe we can put all this unpleasantness behind us. I stared at her, finally seeing clearly what I should have seen months ago. This wasn't about the wedding at all. This was about power, about breaking me piece by piece. No, I said quietly. Excuse me. I said no. I zipped the garment bag closed. Take your dress and get out of my shop. Her smile vanished. You're being ridiculous. This is my wedding we're talking about. No, this was supposed to be my wedding. My dress. My designs. My dreams. I moved around the counter, anger giving me strength. But you couldn't stand that, could you? You had to take everything just to prove you could. You don't deserve any of it, she hissed, mask finally slipping. You're nothing but a second-hand shop girl who got lucky with my brother. I'm doing him a favor by showing him who you really are. And who are you, Celeste? Besides a thief of other people's dreams? She grabbed the garment bag. You'll regret this. When I'm done, you won't have anything left. Not your designs, not your reputation, and definitely not my brother. As she stormed out, I noticed Marcus standing just outside the shop window, his face dark with anger. He'd heard everything. I should have felt satisfied, knowing Celeste had finally shown her true colors to her fiancé. Instead, I felt empty, because I knew what came next would be worse than anything she'd done so far. Celeste Brooks didn't just want my wedding anymore. She wanted to destroy me completely, and I was running out of ways to stop her. I shouldn't have gone to Celeste's wedding, but something pulled me there, maybe the same instinct that makes people slow down to watch car crashes. I slipped into the church just as the ceremony was starting, staying in the back where shadows could hide me. Everything was mine. The vintage lace draped along the pews, the hand-pressed flower arrangements, even the specific shade of ivory I'd spent months tracking down. But seeing Celeste in my dream dress, that was the final twist of the knife. Beautiful ceremony, isn't it? I jumped. Gerald Brooks stood beside me, his expression unreadable. She stole everything, I whispered. Every single detail. I know. He handed me his phone. On the screen was my original wedding planning journal photographs of every page. Nolan sent these to her months ago. I found them when I was checking the family cloud storage. My stomach lurched. He gave her everything? He thought he was helping. Gerald's voice was tired. He still doesn't see what she's really doing. The wedding march began to play, the exact vintage recording I discovered in an old record shop. I watched Celeste float down the aisle, wearing my dress, my smile, my dreams. Marcus stood at the altar, his face tight with tension. Our eyes met briefly, and I saw something like apology there. Then Celeste reached him, and the ceremony began. I should have left then, but I stayed, watching as the priest asked if anyone had any objections. The silence felt like a physical weight. Then Marcus cleared his throat. I do, he said quietly. I object. Church erupted in whispers. Celeste's face went white. Marcus. Her voice wavered. What are you doing? I can't marry someone who builds their happiness on other people's pain. He turned to face the shocked guests. Everything about this wedding was stolen. The dress, the decorations, even the music. It was all copied from Felicity's plans. Plans that Celeste took without permission. That's ridiculous. Celeste's voice rose shrilly. Nolan, tell them. Nolan stood from his place in the front row, looking confused. I just shared some ideas with you. You said you wanted to help. Help? Marcus laughed bitterly. Is that what you call systematically destroying your brother's relationship? Stealing every detail of his wedding? It's not stealing if he gave them to me. Celeste shouted, mask finally cracking. Besides, I did her a favor. Someone like her doesn't deserve a Brooks family wedding. She's nothing but a second-hand shop girl who has more class and creativity in her little finger than you'll ever have, Gerald interrupted, his voice carrying through the church. And who just watched you reveal your true self to everyone who matters. The silence that followed was deafening. I looked around at the shocked faces of the guests, at Marcus's quiet dignity, at Nolan's dawning horror. But it was Celeste's expression that stopped me, cold, pure, undiluted hatred directed straight at me. You, she snarled. You planned this. You turned them all against me. She lunged forward, but instead of coming for me, she grabbed the vintage lace runner from the nearest pew and yanked. carefully arranged flowers crashed to the floor. In seconds, she was tearing through the decorations like a tornado, destroying everything she'd stolen from me. Celeste, stop. Nolan tried to grab her arm, but she shoved him away. This is all your fault, she screamed at me. You took everything from me, my brother, my fiancé, my family's respect. I'll make sure you never have anything of your own. As security finally pulled her away, I caught Nolan's eye. The guilt and shame on his face should have felt like victory. Instead, I just felt empty. I slipped out during the chaos, but not before I heard Celeste's final threat. This isn't over, Felicity. I'll make you pay for this. Walking home in the fading light, I realized she was right about one thing. It wasn't over. Because now I had to decide. Was protecting myself worth destroying what remained of the Brooks family? And more importantly, could I live with either choice? The answer would change everything, I just didn't know how much yet. The morning after the failed wedding, I found Celeste waiting outside my shop. She wasn't wearing designer clothes anymore, just jeans and a sweater that made her look almost normal. Almost human. We need to talk, she said quietly. I unlocked the door, letting her follow me inside. The shop felt different somehow, like a stage set for whatever was about to happen. I lost everything yesterday, Celeste said, running her finger along a vintage dress rack. Marcus won't return my calls. Mother can barely look at me. Even Nolan. Her voice cracked. I didn't make you do any of it, I said, keeping the counter between us. You chose to steal my wedding plans. You chose to lie. Because you took my brother from me. She whirled around, mask cracking. He was all I had, and you just walked in with your perfect vintage finds and your creative talent and your authenticity. She spat the word like poison. Nolan made his own choices. Did he? She pulled out her phone. Because he's outside right now, ready to choose again. My heart stopped as Nolan walked in, looking trapped between us. Tell her, Celeste demanded. Tell her what you decided. Nolan wouldn't meet my eyes. The family needs to heal, Felicity. We need to put this behind us. Maybe if you apologize to Celeste. Apologized? The word felt like glass in my mouth. For turning Marcus against her. For humiliating her at the wedding. I stared at him, finally seeing the truth. You still don't get it, do you? She didn't just steal my wedding plans, Nolan. She tried to steal my entire life, and you helped her do it. I never meant. No, you never meant anything. That's the problem. I turned to Celeste. You want an apology? Fine. I'm sorry I ever thought I could be part of this family. I'm sorry I wasted months loving someone who couldn't even see what was right in front of him. That's not good enough, Celeste said. You destroyed my life. Now I'll destroy your business. I've already called every supplier in the city, told them about how you sell knockoffs as authentic vintage. Actually, a new voice interrupted, you won't be doing that. Marcus stood in the doorway, holding a folder. I recorded everything, Celeste. Every threat, every lie, every attempt to destroy Felicity's reputation. I think the police would be very interested in this pattern of harassment. Celeste's face went white. You wouldn't. Try me. His voice was steel. The only reason I haven't turned this over already is because of Felicity. She asked me to wait to give you a chance to walk away. Is that true? Nolan asked me. I nodded. I didn't want to destroy your family, Nolan. I just wanted to protect myself. Felicity. He reached for my hand, but I stepped back. No. We're done. All of us. I looked at Celeste. Take your brother and go. Build whatever story you need to explain your failed wedding. I don't care anymore. You're making a mistake, she said, but her voice trembled. The only mistake was thinking I needed any of this. I opened the door. Goodbye, Celeste. Goodbye, Nolan. They left silently, Nolan casting one last desperate look over his shoulder. Marcus stayed behind. You could have destroyed them, he said quietly. Why didn't you? I touched a vintage silk scarf, the one that had started everything. Because I don't want to be like her. Some things are worth more than revenge. What will you do now? I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in months. What I've always done. Find beautiful things that others threw away and give them new life. Just, maybe not for the Brooks family anymore. As Marcus left, I turned the shop sign to open. Outside, life went on. Inside, surrounded by the vintage pieces I'd lovingly restored, I finally understood. Sometimes the most valuable things we find aren't the ones we're looking for, but the parts of ourselves we discover along the way. And no one could steal that from me, not even Celeste Brooks. 6 months after Celeste's failed wedding, I stood in my new studio space, surrounded by the soft whisper of vintage silk and leather. The morning light filtered through tall windows, catching on the brass fixtures I'd salvaged from an old department store. Everything here had a story just like me. The bell chimed as Evelyn Brooks walked in, looking elegant but uncertain. This is beautiful, Felicity, she said, touching a restored Chanel jacket. Gerald said you'd done something special with the place, but this… Thank you. I adjusted a display, giving my hands something to do. I wasn't sure you'd come. Gerald insisted. He wants to talk about investing in your business. She paused, watching me carefully. Celeste left for Paris last week. I nodded, unsurprised. And Nolan? Taking assignments overseas. I think he finally understands what he lost. She moved closer, her voice softening. We all do. Before I could respond, Marcus appeared in the doorway. Since the wedding, he'd become an unexpected ally, helping me source rare vintage pieces through his business connections. Ready for the meeting? He asked, then noticed Evelyn. Mrs. Brooks, perfect timing. Did you tell her about the investment offer? I was just getting to that. Evelyn pulled out an envelope. Gerald and I want to help you expand. Your talent for restoration, your eye for beauty, it shouldn't be limited to one shop. Inside the envelope was a business proposal, funding for a chain of high-end vintage restoration boutiques, with me as creative director. The kind of opportunity I'd once dreamed about sharing with Nolan. I don't know, I said slowly. The Brooks family and I don't have the best history with partnerships. That's exactly why it needs to be you, Gerald said, appearing behind his wife. Someone who chose integrity over acceptance. Who showed our family what we'd become. And what about Celeste? Nolan? They'll learn to live with it, Gerald said firmly. Just like they're learning to live with their choices. Marcus touched my arm gently. You don't have to decide now. But don't let what happens stop you from building something amazing. I looked around my studio, at the pieces I'd rescued and restored, at the sketches for designs that were entirely my own. Then I noticed something, a familiar orange box sitting on my counter. What's this? Found it at an estate sale, Marcus said, smiling. Thought you might want it back. Inside was the Hermes scarf from that first day with Nolan. But instead of feeling pain, I felt something else, closure. Okay, I said, looking at Gerald and Evelyn. But I have conditions. This is my vision, my designs. No compromises. We wouldn't want it any other way, Gerald replied. Later, after they'd left, I stood in my studio's doorway, watching the sunset paint the city gold. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I'm sorry. For everything. N. I didn't respond. Some vintage pieces are better left in their boxes, preserved as memories of who we used to be. Instead, I walked to my workbench where a damaged 1940s evening gown waited for restoration. Its beading was scattered, its seams frayed, but I could see its potential. Just like I'd finally seen my own. The bell chimed again. A young woman walked in, wearing uncertainty like I once had. I found this at a thrift store, she said, holding up a worn designer bag. Everyone says it's not worth fixing, but you see something in it, I finished, recognizing that familiar hope. Let me show you what it could become. As I led her to my workbench, I realized something. Sometimes the most valuable things we restore aren't the vintage pieces we find, but the parts of ourselves we thought were broken beyond repair. And sometimes, just sometimes, letting go of a dream makes room for something even better to take its place. I picked up my tools and began to work, ready to write my own story, one stitch at a time.
I never thought I'd be the type of person to snoop through my husband's office. Yet here I was, hands trembling as I held a letter that would shatter everything I thought I knew about my life with Grant. My name is Lila, and until today, I believed I had the kind of marriage other people envied. 15 years together, a beautiful adopted daughter, and a life that looked perfect on paper. But paper, as I was learning, could hide devastating secrets. I hadn't meant to find it. I was just looking for our daughter Avery's immunization records for her school registration when I knocked over a stack of Grant's files. As I gathered the scattered papers, an unopened envelope caught my eye. The return address was from Meridian Investment Partners, dated 3 months ago. "What are you doing in here?" Grant's voice made me jump. He stood in the doorway of his home office, his usually pristine appearance slightly disheveled. His tie was loose, and dark circles shadowed his eyes. "I needed Avery's records," I said, still clutching the letter. "Grant, what's this about a margin call for $2 million? His face hardened in a way I'd never seen before. "You had no right to read my private correspondence." "Private correspondence? We're married. Since when do we keep secrets about money?" My voice cracked. $2 million, Grant. That's not just some small investment gone wrong. He crossed the room in 3 quick strides and snatched the letter from my hands. "It's being handled. This is exactly why I didn't tell you. You're overreacting." "Overreacting? Our daughter's college fund is tied to your investment accounts. Is that gone too?" Grant's silence told me everything I needed to know. "Jesus Christ," I whispered. "Does your mother know about this?" His laugh was bitter. "Mother? Of course not. And she's not going to know. Neither is anyone else." He stepped closer, his cologne suddenly suffocating. "This stays between us, Lila. I mean it." I backed away, my hip bumping his desk. "Or what? Don't be dramatic. I'm protecting our family. Everything I've done has been for us, for Avery." The mention of our daughter sparked something in me. "Don't you dare use her as an excuse. You gambled away her future." "Keep your voice down," he hissed. "She'll hear you." As if on cue, Avery's small voice called from downstairs. "Mom? Dad? Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine, sweetheart," Grant called back, his voice transforming into the warm, caring father I thought I knew. He turned back to me, his eyes cold. "We'll discuss this later. I have a meeting." He straightened his tie and walked out, leaving me alone with the aftermath of what I discovered. My phone buzzed, a text from Theo, my colleague at the social services office. "Still on for lunch?" I stared at the message, my mind racing. Theo had always been perceptive, warning me months ago that something seemed off with Grant. I defended my husband then, convinced Theo was seeing problems that didn't exist. Now I wondered what else I'd been blind to. I heard Grant's car start in the driveway, then the sound of tires on gravel. Through the office window, I watched him drive away, probably headed to another mysterious meeting. But instead of the usual worry about his increasing absences, I felt something else stirring: determination. Opening his laptop, I hesitated for just a moment before typing in his password. After 15 years of marriage, I knew all his codes, all his habits. Or, at least, I thought I did. As the screen came to life, I realized I was crossing a line, but Grant had crossed it first. "Mom," Avery called again. "Can you help me with my science project?" "Coming, sweetie," I called back, but my eyes were fixed on a folder labeled Phoenix Initiative. My cursor hovered over it, my heart pounding. Whatever secrets Grant was keeping, whatever he'd done with our money, I was going to find out. Not just for me, but for Avery. She deserved better than a life built on lies. I clicked the folder. The Phoenix Initiative folder was empty. Of course it was. Grant had always been meticulous about covering his tracks, but this time, he'd slipped up with that letter. I spent the next hour combing through his desk drawers until my fingers brushed against something taped underneath. A burner phone. Lila, darling, where are you hiding? My mother-in-law's voice sent me scrambling to shove everything back in place. Miriam's heels clicked against the hardwood floors, getting closer. I barely had time to slip the phone into my pocket before she appeared in the doorway, perfectly coiffed as always. What are you doing in Grant's office? Her smile didn't reach her eyes. It never did when she looked at me. Just organizing some paperwork, I said, gesturing to the scattered files. You're here early for dinner. Oh, Grant called. He said you were upset about something, so I thought I'd come help smooth things over. She perched herself on the edge of Grant's desk. He works so hard for this family, Lila. Sometimes I worry you don't appreciate that. The burner phone felt like it was burning a hole in my pocket. Did he tell you about the $2 million he lost? Miriam's smile flickered. I'm sure you're exaggerating. Grant knows what he's doing. Does he? I pulled out the letter. Because this says otherwise. She snatched it, her perfectly manicured nails crinkling the paper as she read. For a moment, her mask slipped, showing genuine shock. Then it was gone. Well, she said, folding the letter carefully, all successful men take risks. That's how they build empires. With other people's money? Don't be crude, Lila. This is exactly why Grant doesn't discuss business with you. You're too emotional. The front door opened, and Avery's voice rang out. Grant, you're here. Miriam's face transformed into genuine warmth as she hurried to greet her granddaughter. I used the moment to slip into the bathroom, pulling out the burner phone with shaking hands. The call log showed dozens of conversations with someone listed only as PI. Mom, Avery called up. Can we have pizza for dinner? Ask your grandmother, sweetie. I'll be down in a minute. I quickly photographed the call log with my own phone, then started checking messages. Most were deleted, but one caught my eye. Meeting confirmed. Bring the rest of the documents. No more excuses. The timestamp was from yesterday. Lila. Miriam's voice carried an edge of command. Come help me with dinner. I returned the burner phone to its hiding place and headed downstairs, finding Miriam already taking charge of my kitchen. Avery sat at the counter, watching her grandmother pull ingredients from the fridge. Pizza's not healthy, Miriam was saying. I'm making your father's favorite casserole. But Mom promised. It's fine, Avery, I interrupted, catching my daughter's disappointed look. We can have pizza another night. Miriam smiled triumphantly. See? Your mother can be reasonable when she tries. My phone buzzed, a text from Theo. You okay? You missed lunch. Before I could respond, Grant walked in. He kissed Avery's head, then his mother's cheek, before turning to me with a practiced smile. Mother, thank you for coming. I hope you talked some sense into my wife. We were just discussing how hard you work, Miriam said, shooting me a warning look. I felt the weight of their expectations, their assumptions about my role in this family. The burner phone's messages burned in my mind. Whatever Grant was involved in, it was bigger than just lost investments. Actually, I said, meeting Grant's gaze, your mother and I were discussing the Phoenix initiative. The casserole dish slipped from Grant's hands, shattering on the floor. Avery jumped, and Miriam gasped, but I kept my eyes on my husband's face. For just a second, real fear flashed across it. Avery, sweetheart, he said, his voice tight. Why don't you go upstairs and start your homework? But dinner. Now, please. As our daughter trudged upstairs, Grant turned to me, all pretense gone from his expression. Where did you hear that name? I smiled, channeling Miriam's perfect mask. Maybe we should discuss this after dinner. As a family. The game was changing, and for once, I had the upper hand. I just hoped I was ready for whatever came next. I followed Grant's silver Mercedes through downtown, keeping 3 cars between us. After that tense dinner 2 nights ago, he'd grown more secretive, but also sloppier. He hadn't noticed me watching him punch in the code for a new burner phone, or realized I'd installed a tracking app on his regular cell for emergencies. The Mercedes pulled into the parking lot of the St. Regis Hotel. Of course, somewhere expensive and discreet. I parked across the street, watching Grant check his reflection in the lobby's glass doors before heading inside. My phone buzzed. Theo, you sure about this? I can call in an anonymous tip instead. I texted back, I need to see for myself. The hotel's air conditioning hit me like a wall as I entered. Grant's voice drifted from the bar, that familiar laugh he used when charming clients. I slipped into a booth, hidden behind a large potted plant, and finally saw who he was meeting. She was younger than me, maybe early 20s, with perfectly styled dark hair and an expensive suit. But it was her expression that caught my attention, not flirtatious, but worried. She kept glancing around nervously. The investors are getting impatient, Grant, she said, her voice barely carrying to my hiding spot. They want their money back. Patricia, relax. The Phoenix Initiative is still viable. We just need more time. Time? She laughed bitterly. The SEC is asking questions. If they trace those transfers. They won't. Grant reached for her hand, but she pulled away. Trust me, I've handled everything. Like you handled the margin call? Patricia stood up, gathering her papers. I'm not going down for this. You have until Friday to make it right. She hurried past my booth without noticing me, leaving Grant alone with his whiskey. I waited, watching him make 3 separate phone calls, his movements becoming increasingly agitated. Finally, he headed for the elevator. I should have left then. Should have gone home to Avery, who was probably wondering why both her parents were working late again. Instead, I followed him. The elevator stopped on the 7th floor. I waited 30 seconds before following, my heart pounding as I crept down the hallway. Voices leaked from room 714, Grant's and another woman's, but not Patricia's. It's all falling apart, Grant was saying. I need more time. Time isn't the problem, darling. The voice was familiar. Too familiar. Money is. And I know just how to get it. I pressed closer to the door, my blood running cold as I recognized Miriam's voice. Mother, no. The house is in both our names. Lila would have to sign off. Then make her sign. You've managed her this long, haven't you? Unless. Miriam paused. Has she found something? She mentioned Phoenix Initiative at dinner. I don't know how. Then we have no choice. I'll make the calls tonight. By morning, every cent in your joint accounts will be gone. We'll tell her it was hackers or market volatility. She's naive enough to believe it. And Avery's college fund? Collateral damage. Really, Grant, you're too sentimental. That child isn't even your real. I must have made a sound, because the voices suddenly stopped. Footsteps approached the door. I ran, not caring about the noise, making it to the stairwell just as the door opened. I took the stairs 2 at a time, my mind racing faster than my feet. They were planning to steal everything. Not just my money, but Avery's future. And Miriam's comment about Avery not being real, as if adoption made our daughter somehow less worthy of protection. In the parking lot, I sat in my car, hands shaking as I pulled out my phone. The recording app was still running, having caught every word. I had evidence now, not just suspicions. But evidence of what? How deep did this Phoenix Initiative go? My phone buzzed with a text from Grant. Working late. Don't wait up. Another text followed, this one from an unknown number. Back off, or your daughter loses everything. P.I. They were threatening Avery now. Fine. If they wanted to play hardball, I could play too. I started my car, but instead of heading home, I drove toward the one person I knew could help me understand what I'd stumbled into. Theo had connections in the SEC. It was time to use them. Theo's apartment was exactly what you'd expect from a career social worker, cramped, cluttered, and filled with case files. He listened without interrupting as I played the hotel recording, his expression growing darker with each word. This isn't just fraud anymore, he said, pulling out his laptop. The Phoenix Initiative, I've heard whispers about it at the SEC. They think it's connected to something bigger. Bigger than stealing $2 million? Try 20 million. He turned the screen toward me. Your husband's company isn't just losing money, they're laundering it. And that woman, Patricia? She was found dead in her apartment an hour ago. The room seemed to tilt. What? Apparent suicide, but Theo's phone buzzed. He checked it, then cursed. Your accounts, check them now. My banking app showed all zeros. Every account emptied. Even Avery's college fund, just like they'd planned. My hands started shaking. I have to get home. Avery is at your neighbor's house, remember? Tuesday night dance class. Theo grabbed his keys. I'm coming with you. No, I need you to make those SEC calls. Find out what else Grant's involved in. I stood up, steadying myself. I can handle my husband, Lila. Theo caught my arm. Grant isn't just your husband anymore. He's a suspect in a federal investigation, and now possibly murder. My phone lit up with Grant's face. I answered on speaker. Where are you? His voice was too calm. Mother's trying to reach you. I'm handling a work emergency. Is everything okay? Oh, everything's fine. Except someone accessed my private files today. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you? I met Theo's eyes. No, why would I? Interesting. Because Avery mentioned seeing you follow my car earlier. My blood ran cold. Is she okay? She's fine. Mother picked her up early from dance. We're all having a lovely dinner. You should join us. The threat was clear. Come home, or you won't see your daughter. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Perfect. Oh, and Lila? Leave your phone here. Family dinner should be private, don't you think? The line went dead. You can't go, Theo said. Let me call and back up. They have my daughter. I pulled out my phone, quickly forwarding the recording and account screenshots to his email. If I don't show up alone, they'll disappear with her. You know they will. Then, what's your plan? I opened my purse, showing him Grant's burner phone. They think they're the only ones who can play dirty. Time to prove them wrong. Theo grabbed a business card from his desk. My friend at the SEC. Call her the moment you're safe. The drive home felt surreal. Our house glowed with warm light, looking like the perfect family home we'd pretended to be. Through the dining room window, I could see them. Grant at the head of the table, Miriam beside him, and Avery, my beautiful daughter, pushing food around her plate. My phone buzzed one last time, an email notification. Theo had found something about Phoenix Initiative. I forwarded it without reading it, then deleted everything. Whatever happened next, I needed evidence somewhere safe. Taking a deep breath, I walked to my front door. Before I could reach for my keys, it swung open. Grant stood there, smiling that perfect smile that used to make me feel safe. Welcome home, darling. Mother made your favorite lasagna. Did she? I stepped inside, my heart racing as the door closed behind me. That's so thoughtful. Isn't it? His hand gripped my arm, steering me toward the dining room. Family should always come first. Don't you agree? I caught Avery's eye as we entered. She looked scared, but trying to hide it, just like her mother. Absolutely, I said, taking my seat. Family is everything. Miriam raised her wine glass. To family. I raised mine too, watching the red liquid catch the light. Somewhere in the city, Theo was making calls. Evidence was building. All I had to do was keep my family safe for one more night. To family, I echoed and took a sip. The manila envelope sat heavy in my lap as I waited in Grant's office parking lot. Inside were divorce papers, custody agreements, and printouts of every damning email Theo's SEC contact had sent me. It had been 3 days since that horrible family dinner, 3 days of playing the dutiful wife while gathering evidence. Grant's Mercedes pulled into his reserved spot. Showtime. We need to talk, I said, stepping out of my car. He didn't look surprised to see me. Let me guess, another conversation about trust? About Patricia Martinez's suicide, actually. His step faltered. Just slightly, but enough. I read about that. Tragic. Interesting timing, though. Right after she threatened to expose Phoenix Initiative. I followed him into the building. Did Mother help with that too? He jabbed the elevator button harder than necessary. Careful, Lila. You're starting to sound paranoid. The elevator doors closed, trapping us together. I pulled out the papers. I want full custody of Avery. Excuse me? Sign these, and I won't send copies to the SEC. His laugh was cold. You're bluffing. Like Patricia was bluffing? The elevator stopped at his floor. I wonder if she left a note. Grant grabbed my arm, dragging me into his office. You have no idea what you're dealing with. Actually, I do. I broke free, dropping the envelope on his desk. 20 million in laundered money. Shell companies. And now a dead whistleblower. You've been talking to Theodore Ramirez. He sat behind his desk, suddenly calm. Did he tell you what happened to his last informant? My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Avery's safely picked up from school. Where is she? My voice shook. With mother, enjoying grandmother-granddaughter time. Grant opened the envelope, scanning the papers. You know, I always admired your dedication to lost causes. It's what makes you such a good social worker. She's my daughter. Is she? He pulled out his phone, showing me a video call with Miriam. Avery sat beside her, doing homework. Legal adoption is such a complex process. So much paperwork. Sometimes things get misplaced. The room spun. What did you do? Nothing yet. Sign this. He pushed a different document across the desk. It transfers your rights to the house and joint accounts to me. In exchange, certain adoption papers stay exactly where they belong. You're blackmailing me with our daughter? I'm protecting our family, like always. His smile was gentle, reasonable. Think about Avery. She needs stability, doesn't she? A proper home? My phone buzzed again, Theo. SEC moving in tomorrow. Get out now. Tick-tock, darling. Grant held out a pen. What's it going to be? I thought about Avery's face at dinner 3 nights ago. The fear in her eyes. The way she watched Grant and Miriam, learning how to navigate their manipulation. Learning to become them. You're right, I said, taking the pen. Avery needs stability. Relief flickered across his face as I began to sign. Then his phone rang. What? His face darkened. When? No, keep her there. I'm coming. He stood abruptly. We'll finish this later. Problem. Nothing I can't handle. He straightened his tie. Don't leave this office. The moment he was gone, I grabbed his laptop. His password was still the same, Avery's birthday. Amateur. Within minutes, I found what I needed. Emails about Phoenix Initiative, transfer records, and something unexpected, messages about Patricia's accident. I forwarded everything to Theo, then pulled out my second phone, the one Grant didn't know about. Is she safe? Yes, Theo replied. Got her out during lunch. She's with my sister. Footsteps approached. I quickly closed the laptop as Grant burst back in, his face livid. Where is she? Where's who? I stood, backing toward the door. Your mother? Patricia's ghost? Our daughter? You think this is a game? He advanced on me. You have no idea what these people are capable of. No, I said, holding up my phone, showing him the video I'd just sent to the SEC. But they're about to find out what I'm capable of. The sound of sirens filled the air outside. Grant's face went pale as he realized I hadn't been signing away my rights. I'd been signing his confession. The house looked different in the harsh morning light, all its perfect edges sharp and threatening. 2 police cars still sat outside, their lights off but their presence a warning. Grant had been arrested yesterday, but Miriam was still inside, and I needed to get Avery's things. You don't have to do this alone, Theo said from the driver's seat. Yes, I do. I unbuckled my seatbelt. Stay with Avery. She needs consistency right now. The front door opened before I could reach it. Miriam stood there, immaculate as always, but something had changed in her eyes. Come to gloat, she asked. I came for Avery's belongings. She stepped aside, watching me enter like a hawk studying prey. The house smelled of bleach, Miriam's stress-cleaning habit in full force. You've destroyed this family, she said, following me upstairs. Was that your plan all along? Worm your way in, then tear everything down. I pushed open Avery's door, fighting back nausea at the sight of her empty bed. You and Grant did that yourselves. We gave you everything. A home, a family, a child you couldn't have on your own. My hands shook as I packed Avery's favorite stuffed animals. You gave me lies. Grant's under investigation for murder, and you're probably next. Is that what you think? Miriam's laugh was brittle. The police just left. Apparently, all the evidence on Grant's computer was corrupted. Such a shame. I froze.
What?
And those adoption papers you were so worried about? They're perfectly legal now. Amazing what good lawyers can accomplish overnight. The room spun. Everything I'd gathered. All the evidence. Don't look so devastated, Miriam said. Grant will be out by evening. The Phoenix Initiative has very powerful friends. You're lying. Check your phone. A news alert lit up my screen. Key evidence in financial fraud case corrupted. Suspect released pending investigation. No, I whispered. Oh, yes. Miriam picked up one of Avery's drawings from her desk. You know what's interesting about phoenix birds? They always rise from the ashes. Unlike social workers who make enemies of the wrong people. My phone buzzed again, Theo. Something's wrong. Police at the house. They have questions about your involvement. What did you do? I demanded. Me? Nothing. But it seems someone used your credentials to access confidential financial records. And poor Patricia's medical history. Miriam's smile was venomous. Grant may have been sloppy, but I've been playing this game longer than you've been alive. Heavy footsteps echoed downstairs. Male voices called out, official and demanding. That'll be the detectives, Miriam said. They have some concerns about your relationship with Theodore Ramirez. All those late-night meetings, secret phone calls. What would child services say about such unstable behavior from an adoptive mother? The room closed in around me. Everything I'd done to protect Avery was being twisted, used against me. You can't. I can do anything I want. Miriam stepped closer. But I'm giving you a choice.
Leave now.
Walk away from Avery, from all of this. Start fresh somewhere far away. Or stay and fight. Watch them tear apart your life, your career, your reputation. Watch Avery learn what it means to have a mother who chose revenge over family. The footsteps reached the top of the stairs. Tick-tock, Miriam whispered. What's it going to be? I looked at Avery's room, her books, her toys, the life we'd built. Then at the window, with its convenient trellis leading down to the garden. The same one I'd caught Grant using during his late-night meetings. You're right about one thing, I said, moving toward the window. A phoenix does rise from the ashes. Running away then? How disappointing. I turned back, meeting her triumphant gaze.
No.
I'm going to burn everything down first. The door burst open as I swung out onto the trellis. Let them chase me. Let them think they'd won. Because Miriam had forgotten something crucial about phoenix birds. When they rise from the ashes, they bring the fire with them. The motel room's flickering light made the documents spread across the bed look like evidence from a crime scene. In a way, they were. 3 days of hiding, calling in favors, and piecing together what Miriam thought she destroyed had led to this moment. My burner phone buzzed. It's done, Theo texted. FBI has the files. You sure about this? Before I could respond, someone knocked. Through the peephole, I saw Miriam, alone and looking less polished than usual. I know you're in there, she called. We need to talk. I opened the door, but blocked the entrance. How did you find me?
Please.
You used your old student ID to check in. Amateur move. She held up her hands. I'm alone. Grant doesn't know I'm here. Why should I believe you? Because the FBI just raided our house. Again. This time with evidence that wasn't conveniently corrupted. Her voice cracked. What did you do? I let her in, watching her take in the wall of evidence I'd constructed, photos, bank statements, and most importantly, Patricia's real suicide note. You were sloppy too, I said. Keeping trophies of your victories? Those files in your personal safe told quite a story. You broke into my house?
No.
Your housekeeper did. Amazing what people will share when they discover their pension was part of the money you stole. Miriam sank into the room's single chair. Where's Grant? Probably being arrested again. This time with evidence even Phoenix Initiative's lawyers can't make disappear. You don't understand what you've done. She looked older suddenly, vulnerable. These people, they'll come after all of us now. Even Avery. No, they won't. I pulled out my final piece of evidence, a USB drive. Because I have everything. Every name, every transaction, every crime. If anything happens to us, it goes public. You're bluffing. Try me. I sat on the bed's edge. You taught me well, Miriam. About family, about protection, about rising from the ashes. Her laugh was hollow. Is this revenge then? For all those years, I made you feel unwelcome? This is justice. For Patricia. For everyone whose lives you and Grant destroyed. I leaned forward, but mostly it's for Avery. So she never learns to become like you. You've taken everything from me, she whispered.
No.
You did that yourself. Every time you chose power over integrity. Every time you taught Grant that money matters more than morality. My phone buzzed again, a news alert about Grant's arrest. Miriam saw it too. He'll hate you for this, she said. Maybe. But Avery will be proud. Eventually. And what about me? For the first time, I saw real tears in her eyes. What happens to me? I pulled out an envelope. That's up to you. Option 1. Confess. Help the FBI unravel Phoenix initiative. Maybe get leniency. And option 2.
Run.
Take what's left of your hidden accounts. Yes, I found those too, and disappear. Never contact us again. She stood slowly, straightening her jacket out of habit. You really think it's that simple?
No.
But I think it's necessary. I moved to the door. You have until morning to decide. After that, the FBI gets everything. You know what the difference is between us, Lila? She paused at the doorway. I would have burned it all down out of spite. You did it out of love. Goodbye, Miriam. After she left, I finally replied to Theo. It's done. How's Avery? Drawing pictures of her brave mom. You coming home soon? I looked at the wall of evidence, at the ruins of the perfect family facade we'd maintained for so long. The truth had cost us everything, but it had also set us free. Yes, I texted back. We're going home. My phone lit up with another news alert. Financial empire crumbles. Phoenix initiative executives begin to talk. I started packing up the evidence. Let them talk. Let them point fingers and make deals. We were already rising from these ashes, stronger than before. This time, without the lies. 6 months later, I stood in our new apartment's living room, watching Avery arrange her art supplies on her dedicated desk. The space was smaller than our old house, but somehow it felt bigger, maybe because it wasn't filled with lies. Mom, look. Avery held up her latest drawing. It's us at the park. I crossed the room to examine her work. The stick figures were smiling, holding hands beneath a yellow sun. No mansions, no perfect facades, just joy captured in crayon strokes.
The doorbell rang.
Theo stood outside with a newspaper. Thought you might want to see this. The headline read, Phoenix Initiative Masterminds Plead Guilty. Below is a photo of Grant being led into court, Miriam notably absent from his side. Have you heard from her? Theo asked quietly. I shook my head. After our motel confrontation, Miriam had chosen option 2, disappearance. Sometimes postcards arrived for Avery from different cities, always unsigned but unmistakably in Miriam's elegant hand. The prosecutor called. I said, setting aside the paper. They want me to speak at Grant's sentencing next week. Are you going to? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. The text contained only an address and time, signed M. Mom, Avery called from her desk. Can we hang this up? She held up another drawing, this one showing 3 figures. The smallest wore a crown of stars, while the other 2 stood apart, their stick figure hands reaching toward each other, but not quite touching. Of course, sweetie. I took the drawing, recognizing what she'd captured. Is this about the visit tomorrow? Avery nodded. Tomorrow would be her first supervised visit with Grant since his arrest. She'd insisted on it, showing a wisdom beyond her years about forgiveness and consequences. You don't have to go, I reminded her. I know. She picked up a fresh sheet of paper. but he's still my dad, even if he made bad choices. I hung her drawing next to others on our gallery wall, a collection of moments captured through a child's eyes. Our new home. The day we adopted a rescue cat. Theo teaching her to make tamales. The sentencing hearing. I said to Theo, "I'm not going." "You sure?" "After everything he did."
Exactly. He did it.
And now he's facing the consequences. I gestured to our apartment, to Avery's art corner, to the life we'd built from the ashes of the old one. "We don't need to watch him burn." My phone buzzed again, another text from Miriam's number. "I'm proud of you both." I deleted it without responding. Some phoenixes rise alone. That evening, after Avery was asleep, I sat at her art desk and picked up a pencil. I hadn't drawn since college, since before I'd met Grant and gotten caught up in his perfect life illusion. The shapes came slowly at first, then faster as muscle memory returned. I drew our old house, but not as it had been. Instead, I drew it consumed by flames, with two figures walking away, not in defeat, but in triumph. Behind them, a new sun rose, its rays touching everything with gold. Theo had asked me once if I regretted not taking revenge when I had the chance. If letting justice take its course instead of burning everything down had felt like surrender. Looking at my drawing, at the home we'd built, at the daughter who is learning that strength comes in many forms, I knew the answer. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't in destroying what hurt you, but in building something beautiful from its ruins. I added one final touch to the drawing. A small phoenix rising above the flames, its wings spread wide and free. Tomorrow, Avery would face her father. Next week, Miriam might step out of the shadows. Next month, who knew what challenges we'd face? But we'd face them together, on our terms, in our truth. And that was the most perfect life of all.